How much of your life are you spending worrying about things that don't truly matter? This simple question, taken straight from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, is the wake-up call many of us need. In a world where we're constantly told to do more, be more, and have it all, it's easy to lose sight of what actually brings us happiness. We worry about things outside our control, chase after fleeting validations, and exhaust ourselves trying to meet unrealistic standards. But what if there was a way to break free from all that noise? What if the key to a more fulfilling life was not caring about every little thing that comes your way, but instead focusing on what truly matters? Welcome to Book Play, where we take the most impactful books and turn them into life-changing lessons. If that message resonates with you, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you never miss an episode that could transform your mindset. Today, we're diving into Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F*ck. It's not your average self-help book. Instead of teaching you how to be more successful or more positive, it teaches you how to stop caring about all the distractions and focus your energy on the things that truly matter. Imagine waking up every day feeling clear about your purpose, free from the weight of expectations and the constant pressure to do more. What if the secret to living your best life was learning how to let go of the unnecessary things that drain you? Let's find out together. Thomas was 28, the founder and CEO of a small but promising tech startup. From a young age, he had dreamed of creating something meaningful, an innovation that could change the way people lived and worked. Over the past few years, he poured his heart, his savings, and every ounce of energy into turning that vision into reality. On paper, he was living what many would call the dream, leading his own company, making critical decisions, and navigating the fast-paced world of technology and entrepreneurship. But the truth behind the scenes was far from the polished image. Running a startup was a relentless, exhausting battle. Each day presented a new set of challenges, unpredictable investor meetings that often felt like judgment trials, product launches that didn't go as planned, technical glitches that drained resources, and a constant pressure to innovate faster than competitors. The responsibility felt suffocating. Thomas carried the weight of his entire team's futures, the expectations of his investors, and the hope of his own dreams resting squarely on his shoulders. His workdays stretched into sleepless nights, and the line between work and life faded until it almost disappeared entirely. His phone was never far from his side, each notification a reminder of unfinished tasks, urgent emails, or potential crises. Despite his determination and long hours, Thomas wrestled with self-doubt. Was he making the right choices? Was this startup really going anywhere? The stress gnawed at him from the inside, and the isolation grew heavier with each passing day. It seemed like no one fully understood the unique pressure of being the person responsible for everything. Even so, Thomas refused to give up. He clung to hope, the hope that his startup could break through, that his vision could come to life, and that his hard work would be worth it. Yet with every setback, every missed milestone, and every skeptical investor, that hope was tested. The fear of failure became an unwelcome companion, invading his thoughts late at night, stirring anxiety not just for his own future, but for everyone who believed in him. One particularly tough Saturday afternoon, overwhelmed and exhausted, Thomas decided he needed a break, something to clear his mind and lift his spirits. He stepped away from his laptop, from emails, from calls, and walked to a nearby bookstore. It was a rare moment of silence and calm amid the chaos of his life. As he browsed the aisles, his gaze fell on a book with a striking, blunt title, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fucker by Mark Manson. The title surprised him. Its straightforwardness was almost shocking, but it also sparked a deep curiosity. What if this book held a new way of thinking, a way to stop worrying about everything that didn't truly matter? Thomas flipped the book over and read the back cover. The message was simple but profound. The key to a better life was not caring about more things, but caring only about what was truly important and learning to let go of the rest. This resonated deeply with him. Maybe the constant pressure and exhaustion were because he was spreading himself too thin, giving too many fucks where they weren't needed. For the first time in weeks, a small flicker of hope ignited inside Thomas. Without hesitation, he bought the book and took it home. That evening, sitting alone in his quiet apartment, Thomas opened the pages with cautious optimism. Could this unconventional guide be the clarity he needed to finally find peace amidst the chaos and to focus on what truly mattered in both his business and his life? The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, authored by Mark Manson, stands apart from typical self-help books. Rather than offering promises of constant happiness, instant success, or unrealistic positivity, Manson presents a refreshing and brutally honest perspective on what it truly means to live a meaningful life. At the heart of the book lies a powerful and simple idea. Life is finite, and so is our capacity to care. We only have so much time, energy, and emotional investment to give. Because pain, failure, and discomfort are inevitable parts of the human experience, the question isn't how to avoid them, but how to decide what's truly worth our attention and concern. This is the subtle art, learning to give a limited number of fucks about what genuinely matters, while letting go of everything else. Manson argues that our culture's obsession with constant positivity and success often leads to unrealistic expectations, increased stress, and a fear of failure. Instead of shielding ourselves from discomfort or trying to be perfect, he encourages embracing life's struggles as opportunities for growth. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the journey towards it. Through a blend of humor, bluntness, and insightful storytelling, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck invites readers to re-examine their values, confront their limitations, and accept responsibility for their choices. This mindset shift is not about being indifferent or careless, but about focusing on what truly aligns with our personal values and purpose. For Thomas, our startup founder, this message couldn't be more relevant. His days are filled with overwhelming responsibilities, constant pressure to perform, and a relentless fear of failure. The book's core lesson, that not everything deserves his energy and worry, offers a path to freedom. It suggests that by prioritizing his values and accepting that some struggles are necessary, Thomas can regain control over his life, reduce his stress, and focus on what will truly make his startup and life meaningful. Throughout this summary, we will unpack the book's most impactful lessons and watch Thomas as he gradually applies these insights. His journey will reveal how choosing what to care about and what to let go can lead to deeper confidence, greater clarity, and a more fulfilling life. Lesson number 1. Choose your fucks wisely. The first and most crucial lesson Thomas learns is this: you cannot care about everything. Life offers a limited number of fucks to give, and the quality of your life depends on how wisely you choose where to invest your attention and energy. Thomas, a young startup founder, had always been driven by ambition and passion for his project. Yet, his days were consumed by an endless barrage of emails, meetings, customer complaints, product bugs, investor questions, and 1,000 other urgent demands. Every little problem felt like a crisis, every criticism felt personal, and the pressure to do everything perfectly weighed heavily on him. His energy was stretched thin, leaving him exhausted and emotionally drained. He had been living with the belief that caring more would lead to better results, more success, more progress. But instead, Thomas found himself caught in a constant state of anxiety and burnout, unable to focus on what truly mattered. When Thomas first stumbled upon the idea from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck that he had to be selective about where he invested his care, he felt conflicted. How could he stop worrying about so many things that seemed important? Wouldn't ignoring them mean failure or neglect? But as he reflected deeper, He realized that by trying to care about everything, he was in fact losing control. His scattered attention prevented him from making meaningful progress on the things that truly aligned with his purpose, building a sustainable startup and maintaining his own well-being. This lesson urged Thomas to step back and evaluate his priorities honestly. He began to identify which challenges, values, and goals were genuinely worth his limited energy. Instead of reacting emotionally to every obstacle, he started to filter out distractions and focus on what would move him closer to his vision. For instance, instead of obsessing over every minor bug reported, he focused on the top issues that impacted his core users. Instead of responding immediately to every email, he created boundaries to protect his deep work time. And importantly, he recognized the value of saying no to requests or opportunities that did not align with his company's mission or his own values. Take a moment to write down all the things currently demanding your attention, big or small, work or personal. Now identify which of these truly align with your core values and long-term goals. These are the areas worthy of your energy. Commit to focusing on these priorities. Start practicing clear boundaries. Learn to say no or defer less important tasks and distractions. This shift will not only free up your time, but also reduce stress and increase your effectiveness. Remember, this is not about becoming indifferent or careless. It's about conscious and deliberate caring. It's about valuing your limited emotional resources and using them to create a meaningful, focused life. You only have so many fucks to give. By choosing them carefully, you regain control over your time, energy, and ultimately, your happiness. As Thomas internalized this truth, his world started to feel less chaotic. He found clarity in his priorities and calm in his choices, but he also knew the journey had just begun. With focus restored, he began wondering, what challenges should I welcome, knowing they will lead to growth rather than overwhelm? Lesson number 2, embrace discomfort and failure. Having learned to carefully choose where to invest his energy, Thomas soon encountered another profound challenge, embracing discomfort and failure as integral parts of growth. For much of his life, Thomas had avoided discomfort whenever possible. It was natural to seek ease and safety. In his startup world, however, discomfort was constant. Uncertainty about funding, fear of disappointing his team, and the relentless pressure to perform. His instinct had been to dodge painful situations, to shield himself from failure and rejection. But the message from the subtle art of not giving a FAK challenged everything he believed. Mark Manson's words reminded Thomas that growth isn't about avoiding pain or struggle. Instead, true progress comes precisely from leaning into these difficult moments, accepting discomfort as a sign of meaningful effort. Thomas reflected on his own experience. He recalled the moment an investor said no after his pitch, the sting of rejection that made him question his worth, the bug-ridden product launch that felt like a public failure, the long sleepless nights filled with self-doubt and anxiety. Each felt like a setback, a sign that maybe he wasn't cut out for this. But as Thomas dug deeper into the book, he saw those moments differently. They weren't failures, but essential stepping stones. The discomfort wasn't a barrier, but a teacher. It showed him where he needed to improve, how to adapt, and what mattered most. Thomas began to change his mindset. Instead of fearing failure, he chose to face it. He stopped avoiding uncomfortable conversations with his team or investors. He started to see every obstacle as an opportunity to build resilience, to grow stronger personally and professionally. This shift wasn't easy. There were days when the discomfort felt overwhelming, but Thomas reminded himself that pain was inevitable in any worthwhile journey. The difference was whether he let it stop him or used it to propel him forward. When discomfort or failure arises, resist the urge to run away or numb yourself. Instead, pause and reframe your experience. Ask, what is this discomfort teaching me? How can this failure guide my next step? Begin welcoming challenges as signals of growth rather than threats to avoid. Practice small steps. Have a difficult conversation you've been putting off. Try something new where success isn't guaranteed, or take responsibility for a mistake without excuses. Over time, these actions will build your tolerance for discomfort and strengthen your resilience. Embracing discomfort and failure is essential to growth. Rather than signs of weakness, they are the conditions necessary for true progress. With this lesson internalized, Thomas felt a new sense of courage and calm. He no longer shrank from challenges, but welcomed them as part of the path. This led him to the next question. What power do I hold by taking full responsibility for my choices and their consequences? Lesson number 3. Take responsibility for your life. As Thomas continued his journey, embracing discomfort and failure, he soon encountered a lesson that would challenge him even more profoundly: the necessity of taking full responsibility for his life. Before this, Thomas often felt like a passenger on a turbulent journey, circumstances beyond his control dictating the path. Market shifts, investor hesitations, or team disagreements felt like forces pushing and pulling him in unpredictable ways. It was easy to blame these external factors for his frustrations and setbacks. After all, who wouldn't feel powerless when the world seemed to conspire against their dreams? But Mark Manson's message was clear. True power and freedom lie not in controlling everything around us, that's impossible, but in owning our responses, choices, and attitudes toward what happens. This realization was both daunting and liberating for Thomas. On one hand, it meant no more excuses or blaming external factors. He had to look honestly at his role in shaping his reality. On the other hand, it gave him agency, a chance to reclaim control over his life and startup journey. Thomas began reflecting deeply on moments where he had pointed fingers at partners who missed deadlines, at market conditions that made fundraising hard, or at competitors who seemed luckier. What if he stopped seeing himself as a victim and started seeing himself as the decision-maker? He recalled a particularly tense board meeting where frustration bubbled over because his startup hadn't hit targets. Previously, he might have blamed the team or the market, but now he asked himself, what could I have done differently? How did my choices contribute to this situation? What am I responsible for? This wasn't about self-blame. It was about honest ownership. Thomas realized that taking responsibility gave him clarity on what he could control, his vision, his effort, his decisions, and what he could not. This clarity became his anchor amidst the chaos. He also understood that responsibility meant making tough choices. It meant saying no to distractions and low-value tasks. It meant prioritizing his time, energy, and focus on what truly mattered for his startup and his personal growth. It meant setting clear boundaries with clients, partners, and even friends who drained his energy or misaligned with his values. At times, this path was uncomfortable. Owning responsibility meant facing uncomfortable truths and making decisions that weren't popular or easy. But Thomas found that each step strengthened his confidence and sense of purpose. Begin by identifying one area where you feel stuck or overwhelmed. Ask yourself, what part of this situation do I control? What choices have I made that brought me here? What can I do differently right now to change my path? Take a concrete step, set a boundary, make a decision, or change a mindset. Remember, responsibility isn't about controlling others or external events. It's about owning your part fully and consciously, freeing you from feeling powerless. Taking full responsibility for your life transforms you from a passive victim to an active creator of your reality. This ownership is the foundation of true freedom and growth. As Thomas embraced this lesson, a new confidence emerged. He no longer felt tossed by external chaos, but grounded in his power to choose and act. With responsibility as his compass, he was ready to explore a deeper truth, the power of choosing values that shape the meaning of his life and work. Lesson number 4: choose your values wisely. Having taken full responsibility for his life, Thomas faced the next, perhaps most vital lesson in his journey: the importance of choosing his values wisely. This lesson struck at the core of how he understood himself and what kind of life he wanted to build, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a person. For many years, Thomas had chased conventional markers of success. He had believed that accumulating wealth, earning praise from investors, and expanding his startup at all costs would bring him happiness and fulfillment. Yet, despite hitting some milestones, he often felt a persistent emptiness, like he was running on a treadmill going nowhere meaningful. Mark Manson's book challenged this mindset. It revealed that not all values serve us equally. Some values elevate us, leading to growth, resilience, and genuine happiness. Others, even though they might seem attractive or prestigious, can trap us in cycles of frustration and dissatisfaction. Thomas began to critically examine the values that had guided his decisions. He realized that his relentless pursuit of approval from others had become a double-edged sword. On one hand, it pushed him to perform. On the other, it led him to neglect his own well-being and authentic desires. He had said yes to too many projects and commitments out of fear of disappointing others, even when they drained his energy or conflicted with his vision. He also recognized that avoiding conflict and discomfort had been another limiting value. Thomas often tried to keep the peace, hoping to avoid difficult conversations with partners or employees, but this avoidance only delayed problems and increased stress over time. Armed with these insights, Thomas started to redefine his values consciously. He prioritized integrity, choosing honesty over easy approval, even when it was uncomfortable. He valued courage, learning to face difficult conversations head-on instead of shrinking from them. Responsibility became a guiding principle, influencing how he handled setbacks and made decisions. Above all, he embraced authenticity, striving to align his actions with his true self rather than external expectations. This process wasn't simple or instantaneous. It involved deep reflection, sometimes painful self-honesty, and deliberate changes in behavior. But with each value he clarified and embraced, Thomas felt a profound sense of freedom and clarity. Decisions that once felt overwhelming became clearer because he filtered opportunities and challenges through his core values. He began asking himself, does this choice reflect who I want to be? Does it honor my values? If the answer was no, he allowed himself to say no without guilt. This newfound clarity helped him focus on the work and relationships that truly mattered, boosting his motivation and resilience. Take some quiet time to list your current values. Ask yourself, which values support my growth and well-being? Which ones might be holding me back? Be honest and open. Then consciously choose to prioritize values that foster resilience, integrity, and authenticity. Use these values as a compass when making decisions, setting boundaries, and defining your purpose. Remember, your values are the foundation of your life's meaning and direction. When you choose them wisely, you create a framework that supports sustainable happiness and success, even when challenges arise. The values you live by shape your identity and the quality of your life. Prioritizing healthy, authentic values empowers you to live with purpose, clarity, and strength. As Thomas aligned his life and business with these values, he felt a growing peace and confidence. He no longer chased every opportunity or approval. Instead, he invested his energy where it mattered most, feeling more fulfilled and grounded. With this deeper understanding, Thomas was ready for the final lesson, embracing his limits and mortality and finding freedom in acceptance. Lesson number 5. Accept your limits and embrace mortality. By the time Thomas reached this final lesson, his mindset had already shifted in profound ways. He had taken responsibility for his life, chosen his values wisely, and learned to face discomfort with courage. But the most profound and humbling insight awaited him: accepting his limits and embracing the truth of mortality. Throughout his journey as a startup founder, Thomas had wrestled with a powerful urge to control outcomes, to be perfect, to avoid failure at all costs. He had often believed that if he worked hard enough, pushed himself further, and never showed weakness, he could somehow escape the limits that define every human life. Yet Mark Manson's message forced Thomas to confront a deeper reality. Life is finite. Every one of us has limited time, energy, and influence. Trying to overcome this truth is not only futile but harmful. It leads to frustration, anxiety, and a constant feeling of never being enough. At first, this truth unsettled Thomas. Accepting his limits felt like admitting defeat. But slowly, as he reflected on the book's wisdom, he realized that acceptance was not surrender. It was freedom. Freedom to focus on what truly mattered, without the heavy burden of unrealistic expectations. Freedom to say no to distractions and empty pursuits. Freedom to live with honesty, courage, and meaning in the time he had. Thomas realized that by accepting his limits, he could also accept failure and imperfection as natural parts of growth. Instead of fearing mistakes, he began to see them as necessary feedback, signs that he was pushing beyond his comfort zone and learning. This reframing eased his anxiety and increased his resilience. More importantly, embracing mortality helped Thomas become present. He saw that the urgency of life's finiteness was a call to invest in what gave him genuine fulfillment: his team, his family, and his values-driven mission. This perspective shift was transformative. Thomas felt a calmness and clarity that had eluded him for years. No longer driven by fear or external validation, he now moved forward with a deep sense of purpose and peace. Take a moment to honestly reflect on your own limits, your time, energy, and emotional capacity. Instead of resisting these realities, practice acceptance. Consider your mortality not as a morbid thought, but as a motivator to focus on what matters most. Use this awareness to guide your daily choices and priorities. Remember, accepting limits and mortality is a powerful form of self-care. It frees you from the exhausting need to control everything and opens the door to a more intentional, fulfilling life. When you accept your limits and the reality of mortality, you liberate yourself from unrealistic expectations and fear, enabling a clearer focus on what truly matters. With this lesson, Thomas completed a profound transformation. He was no longer the overwhelmed, anxious founder desperate to prove himself. Instead, he was a leader grounded in acceptance, courage, and clarity, ready to live fully, lead wisely, and embrace life's uncertainties with confidence. After many months of inner work, struggle, and discovery, Thomas emerged transformed. The young entrepreneur who once felt overwhelmed by the endless demands of his startup and the pressure to succeed at any cost had undergone a profound shift, not just in what he thought, but in how he felt and acted every day. Thomas had learned to take radical responsibility for his life. He no longer saw circumstances, other people's opinions, or random events as reasons to feel powerless or defeated. Instead, he recognized that his responses, his choices, and his mindset were the true sources of his freedom. This sense of ownership, although challenging, gave him a renewed sense of control and dignity. What's more, Thomas embraced the idea that not all struggles are created equal. He understood that discomfort and hardship are inevitable, but suffering is optional and depends on where he chose to invest his energy. Instead of running from pain or distraction, he actively sought challenges aligned with his core values, those that would help him grow and build something meaningful. This mindset turned struggle into a form of growth and purpose rather than a source of fear. Throughout his journey, Thomas re-examined his values. He let go of superficial definitions of success, wealth, fame, or approval from others that had driven him before. In their place, he committed to values like authenticity, integrity, resilience, and meaningful connection. These values became his compass, guiding every decision and helping him stay grounded in times of uncertainty. Perhaps the most profound transformation came when Thomas accepted his limits and the reality of mortality. This acceptance was not a surrender to fear, but an embrace of clarity and peace. He stopped fighting the impossible battle against time and imperfection. Instead, he focused his energy on what truly mattered: on relationships, impact, and living in alignment with his purpose. This brought a deep calmness and fulfillment that far exceeded any external success. Thomas's story is a testament to the power of intentional personal growth. It shows that change is possible even when life feels overwhelming, even when the pressure to perform seems unrelenting. Transformation comes through consistent effort, honest reflection, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. For you, the viewer, these lessons are a guide and a call to action. They invite you to ask, what are you willing to care deeply about? Where are you giving your time and energy? And is it helping or hurting you? What values do you want to live by? How can you take responsibility for your mindset and choices, even in difficult moments? This journey is not easy, and it will require courage. But the reward is a life lived on your own terms, with clarity, purpose, and resilience. Remember, transformation doesn't happen overnight. It begins with small, deliberate steps, choosing your values, facing discomfort, accepting your limits, and taking responsibility for your life. Like Thomas, you have the power to change your story and create a life that feels truly meaningful. Thank you for spending this time with us, exploring these powerful lessons from the subtle art of not giving a fuck. If you found value in Thomas's journey and the insights shared, take a moment to reflect on which lesson resonated most with you and how you might apply it in your own life starting today. If this video inspired you or helped shift your perspective, please consider liking it and subscribing to Book Play. Our mission is to bring you clear, meaningful summaries of life-changing books, books that can transform your mindset and empower your personal growth. By subscribing, you'll never miss a video designed to support your journey toward clarity, purpose, and greater fulfillment. Remember, change begins with intention, and with the right guidance, you can create the life you truly want. We're here to walk alongside you every step of the way. Thank you again for watching. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep growing.